because what happens often is when we're diagnosed with dementia, we might feel more intimidated to go out into the public because maybe we lose track of what we're saying mid-sentence. Um, Maybe we can't find words that we used to be able to find before, so we find ourselves socially isolated because of the stigma.
Hey everybody, Ken Hendricks with Home Instead here, and thank you so much for joining me again today. Today I'll be chatting with a new friend of mine, Nicolette Ketchum. Nicolette is a physician assistant who also has spent time as an elementary and middle school teacher. Her journey has led her into lots of different facets of work that all have a decidedly service-oriented angle to them. So she's certainly the type of person with the type of heart that we're really thankful for in our world today, and the type of person that brings that special sauce to communities that we need a lot more of in our day and age. Nicolette and I connected along our journeys due to the fact that recently she's become more involved with serving those who are living with dementia and Alzheimer's and serving their caregivers as well. Her and I will be co-presenting and collaborating for an exciting portion of an upcoming conference called Dementia Possibilities that's going to be taking place the second week of November. And so more details about that are going to be coming very, very soon. I'm really looking forward to what is in store for the conference, but I'm also looking forward to the conversation that her and I are about to have today. So without further ado, please welcome Nicolette. Thank you for joining me for this chat.
Thank you, Ken.
And so for those who have yet to meet you, can you give us a little bit of info about yourself and your background, and particularly what led you to this most recent focus of serving those affected by Alzheimer's and dementia?
So I've been a physician assistant for 17 years. I worked in clinical practice for Indian Health Service, both as an urgent care and a primary care provider. And so I started to see more patients with dementia, and coordinating their care, I really came to appreciate is very challenging. And one of the elements that definitely is missing is the social component, because what happens often is when we're diagnosed with dementia, we might feel more intimidated to go out into the public because maybe we lose track of what we're saying mid-sentence. Um, Maybe we can't find words that we used to be able to find before, so we find ourselves socially isolated because of the stigma
Yeah.
of dementia. So I had heard about the Memory Cafe, and then I had connected with Uta Lockbig, the originator of Memory Cafes in the United States, which actually started in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 2008. And so starting in September of 2019, we started to work with a group of volunteers, both people who are care partners for people with dementia and professionals in the field as well, to develop a place that was safe for people with dementia and their care partners together without worrying about that stigma of dementia.
I love just seeing people that it seems like there's a bit of magic that exists in some people where they see a issue, they see a problem, and they don't just identify the problem, but they actually work toward a solution. I think that feels rare, um, but it's lovely to see. And Yuta, you mentioned Yuta Lockvig and the cafe that she has here in Santa Fe, and she's been on the show a couple times, and she's also one of the people we're working with for this upcoming conference. She's a great person that does the same type of thing, that has that same type of magic in her. But you have such a interesting background that, as you know, being a school teacher and then a physician assistant and then being led into this work, what would you say is the common thread that runs through all that?
So serving others it has always been important to me since I was 8 years old. When I started a little library in my backyard with my books to share with other kids in the neighborhood. And then, like when I was 12 years old, organized a softball tournament for the Children's Hospital in St. Louis. So serving others has always been a passion of mine. The one thing, though, that I have learned about service over time, though, is that when we are serving others, it's important to be working with the people that you want to serve, planning with the people that you want to serve, in order to really bring more benefit to the project that you and the community that you want to serve are interested in. And I think that will also allow for sustainability of the project as well.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm the kind of person that I really love brainstorming and dreaming about ways to to affect positive change. But sometimes I think you can come up with something that you think is a fantastic idea, but it doesn't really address the main issues that people are dealing with. And so it makes a lot of sense, what you're saying, just to work with the people that you're seeking to serve so you can really get a good idea of what's going to help them the most.
Right.
And I'm sure your role, I mean, as you spoke of before, your role as a physician assistant, just working alongside people who are dealing with different types of ailments and different types of conditions and their caregivers, that really gave you a bird's eye view, I'm sure,
Mhm.
into what was really the main issues that they needed help with. Um, and then you came up with this idea to do something that would promote an atmosphere where they can have social engagement and social activity, and we could decrease the stigma around things like Alzheimer's and dementia. And so I've heard wonderful things about your group. You call it the Hummingbird Memory Cafe, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm looking forward to joining in with you all at one of your meetings later this month. But can you tell folks, you mentioned it a little bit before, but the Alzheimer's, the Memory Cafe, what is that? And what is it that you do with your group that might be different than what people have experienced in other settings?
So the Memory Cafe, and I wanted to mention also that when you look up Hummingbird Memory Cafe, you're going to see memory in parentheses, and that's not because of the stigma of memory loss. It's just I didn't want people to feel pressure that they have to remember anything when they come to the cafe. I want them to just come and engage with each other, make connections with people who are in similar situations.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to put memory in parentheses, no pressure to remember anything. And so when we gather, and we've gone virtually now, but the format has pretty much stayed the same in that we gather, we introduce ourselves, and not necessarily like our agency or what we do. It's our name only, because names are important to individuals. We do wear name tags just so people don't have to have the stress of remembering names, but we
That's perfect.
only, put our first name on there, and that's all. Um, and so we introduce ourselves and try to have a prompt also to initially, even just with introductions, make connections with each other. So I ask a question, for example, your favorite season and why. And then you start to say, oh, that person likes fall too, that person likes spring too. So we introduce ourselves. And then the activities revolve around the arts. And the reason that we use the arts is because there's no right or wrong in creating. And even if someone, just wants to join us and just wants to sit and, and listen or look, that's okay too. So we used to do a lot of singing, when we met in person.
Yeah.
And so the music has been a little bit more challenging online because of delay. And we did try some group singing, but I'm sure as a lot of people who have tried singing in their cafes know about the delays
It
and
does
how it
not
kind of
work
becomes
out well.
garbled, right? So you have to have one person who feels confident in singing, and then everybody kind of shuts their microphones off and sings along as well. So singing was really definitely a highlight when we were meeting in person, and so we switched those. When at the cafe, again, people could shut off their microphones and could sing along to the videos, but we were having some issues with bandwidth. And so we're going to revisit that though at our tech review tomorrow at 2 p.m. Everyone's welcome to join that as well if you want to learn more about how to use Zoom. And we do some fun activities even at the tech review, which is 1 week before the regular cafe, which is the second Wednesday of the month. So we'll try videos again and see how that goes tomorrow. And so there's music, and then also like painting, collaging also. And so we've incorporated now an artist who is in our group, and she leads activities online, but they're activities where people who want to participate, they can just scramble and get the supplies in their house. So we did doodling the last month, so people could just get something to write with or draw with and something to draw on. And then this month we'll be doing stippling, again, paper, something to draw with as well. And then get other community members who have special skills. We had quilting, a quilter who joined us last month. This month we'll have a gentleman from the San Juan Soil and Water Conservation talking to us about home gardening, as well as a simple way to can. So we have themes each month that kind of make it easier to plan. We always incorporate storytelling as well, and we try to create a poem at each cafe as well. So arts are really the focus of the cafe.
That's awesome. You and I have had the conversation before about how there's just things like this are so needed because you have the difficulties associated with a diagnosis of any disease that includes dementia, Alzheimer's being the most prevalent, the most recognizable, the most common association that people can have an understanding of what families face when they receive this type of diagnosis. It's very daunting, and the whole messaging around Alzheimer's and dementia, for good reason, is to help people understand the difficulties that others face, so that they can help contribute to research and things that will hopefully turn out for better treatment options and hopefully cures for some of these diseases. But in that messaging, we've talked about the fact that oftentimes, I mean, there's not a whole lot of hope to be found sometimes when it's just the messaging of all the difficulties associated with the disease and that families face. And so I love that you and I are associated with some groups that are really all about just making the most of life, like for people who are dealing with these things, and helping folks to find just the daily bits of beauty and hope that can be accessed and lived, that life is not over, and there's still hope to be found in each and every day. And so a group that like yours that focuses on creativity and purpose in the gatherings, with to the exclusion of talking about a workshop on Alzheimer's and the facts of symptoms and signs and things like that. It's very needed. And so we mentioned up top, you and I are going to be collaborating on a workshop for the upcoming Dementia Possibilities Conference. And that's really that's the whole idea of the conference, the Dementia Possibilities. I mean, we're going to be covering some topics throughout that week that are very practical, and most of it's going to be just very focused on living well with dementia, like as best as we possibly can day to day. And so can you tell folks a little bit about what you and I are going to be doing?
So I'm really excited about this. So Ken and I are going to be doing a poetry songwriting workshop. And so it'll begin with, and I think our theme was going to be possibilities. Is that right, Ken? The theme
Uh,
of our poem slash song.
yeah, I think, and also just in an organic way, like it'll take shape, I think, once we get in, the room, like it's all going to be
Right.
online. But once we get in the group, I think that but yes, yeah, that was one of the things we talked about, and it's going to be exciting to see it take shape with people's input. But
So we'll gather the words that people think about with possibilities, and then even try to expand those a little bit more with some descriptors and sensory words. Then arrange the words, and then kind of get a sense of the musical preferences of the participants in this workshop. And then Ken will work on putting the words to music, and then we'll have a big reveal on Friday of this new original song created by everyone that engages us on the workshop.
I'm really excited about it too. It's kind of a new challenge for me. I mean, because I've written songs a lot over the years, but um, just the commitment to something new and fresh taking shape and trusting that that's going to result, in a song. Um, and I really want to incorporate, like what we were talking about this past week. I want to incorporate the musical tastes of the participants as much as I can. You know, uh,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I'm excited because you don't know, what group we're gonna have together, and you don't know what words individuals are going to be thinking of,
Right.
and it's exciting to just kind of anticipate what shape that might take, and it'll be really cool to see it. So, and then I'm sure with that song, hopefully that'll live online somewhere with the
Yes.
video that we create and stuff, and
Mhm.
so stay tuned for that for sure. Um, One of the things, as I was, doing some more looking into some of your background and some of the things that you've worked in over the years, and some of the passions that you've had for people of diverse populations, what concerns do you have about inclusion within dementia care?
Yeah. So I also work with a food equity task force here in Farmington, New Mexico, and really making sure that everyone's voices are included when we're planning in a community is super important for everyone to have a sense of belonging. And so true inclusion allows a person to be actively involved in planning for the full spectrum of their life. And when it comes to a diagnosis of dementia, the earlier the diagnosis is made, the better a person with dementia and their care partners can plan for a future that maximizes their quality of life. Getting a diagnosis early, though, continues to be a challenge for many members of our society due to stereotyping and discrimination on many levels, transportation and communication barriers, lack of access to healthcare, in particular, specialty care for those exhibiting symptoms of dementia, and distrust of the healthcare system. The lack of access to healthcare, as well as these other challenges, has also contributed to less preventative care and research participation. So it's important that we're inviting all voices to the table and listening to how we can best address dementia care in all of our communities. And these conversations can be difficult and they take time, but the outcomes will be more sustainable by planning with those we serve and not just for them.
It seems so obvious and practical, but I think that um, I mean, the climate that we find ourselves in socially, I mean, it's stressed because of so many different factors. And like we're in the midst of 2020, which is just no one saw this whole pandemic coming. I mean, I don't know how you could have really, but there it seems to be I find myself often thinking that one of the reasons everything feels so charged these days is because the issues that we're all trying to sort through are so complicated and difficult. And I think one of the defense mechanisms that we can just, probably unwittingly just fall into is just kind of caricaturing problems and just kind of having just pushing them away because they're complicated, you
Mhm.
know. But the practical, obvious nature of what you're saying, just being to be willing to listen and hear the people who are most affected by these different types of issues,
Mhm.
um, and try to address what they're saying rather than what
Mhm.
you might think is the problem. Like
Right,
we said
right.
earlier, like sometimes we think we have a great idea for how to solve a problem, and
Mhm.
it's not really addressing the issue. um,
Mhm.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think just I'm just thankful. I'm sure everybody up in the community where you are is super thankful for you and everything that you're doing. And we definitely need more people that are willing to do the hard work of listening and addressing the real issues at hand. And yeah, all that to say, I'm just really thankful for you, Nicolette. I'm thankful to know you. I'm excited to work with you. Um, and yeah, so definitely we're going to be coming out with more details about the upcoming conference, Dementia Possibilities. I know that all the organizations involved are probably going to be starting to share details around how to register for the conference very, very soon. And I'll definitely be sharing those details here. So keep an eye out for that. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Nicolette? Any message of encouragement to folks, maybe toward caregivers and people who are dealing with issues associated with dementia care during this COVID year?
I just wanted to add to what you said about um, people who are interested in this work, that there are a lot of people who are interested in addressing issues of equity and justice,
Yeah.
and making communities better places for everyone to live. It's just that they're not being invited to the table.
Mm,
So I just want to encourage that if you're in an organization that is working on equity and justice, that you are kind of keeping your ears open and your eyes open for people who are interested, and inviting them to the table and listening to what their ideas are as well. Because I'm very lucky that I get to work with so many great people in Farmington, both through the cafe and through, for example, like this food equity task force. So there are a lot of people who are interested. We just have to
yeah.
invite them and listen to them. I want to add also about, talking about the stressors of this time, that one of the things we've incorporated into this Dementia Possibilities Conference is the concept of mindfulness, and it's integrated into every session. So it's not just, like a one little 1 hour blurb. It's
Yeah.
actually going to be integrated into every session, where we'll be practicing many mindfulness activities that people will be able to take home, whether it's just a brief meditation or maybe some longer exercises. And one of the activities we're going to do related to poetry and mindfulness is at the end of, I believe it's the Love and Money Day, which is a day where we talk a little bit about the paperwork that's involved with dementia care, and some pretty heavy topics that day.
Yeah.
And so, kind of to debrief and take and kind of affirm that we can do this.
Mhm.
We can do this work. We can take care of the people we need to take care of. We're going to use poetry as affirmation. So I hope that people will be able to join for that activity as well, because that'll be something, even the poetry that you create that day, that you can take with you to remind you that you can get through this, and we can all get through this together.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a fantastic message to end on. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And I'll have all of your contact info that you want to get out there in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to Nicolette, I'll have her contact info in the notes just below the episode, so you don't have to look far for it. Thank you for joining me today, Nicolette. I hope you have a great rest
Thank
of your
you.
day.
Awesome. Thank you. So this was a poem that we created at our first cafe in February. It's called Because of Kindness. Because of kindness, we are friends. Your smile brightens an otherwise dark day. Friends don't isolate and provide a listening ear. I've been brought to happy tears. I can breathe. I am strong. I am blessed. I feel safe. I am not alone because you see me. We are here. There is hope. Because of kindness, I can face another day.
That's awesome.